share my ideas about that, because I've definitely learned over the years, since I've been on this path of learning more about like the way that I think, becoming more conscious of my thoughts, how I let go of certain ideologies, and how that's really changed my baseline level for the way that I feel. I believe that now, more so than ever, more so than 5, 6, 7 years ago, that the way I feel all the time is I feel really good a majority of the time, and mainly the reason I feel as good as I do is because I let go of a lot of things that were really holding my energy down. Now, that's what I'm going to be sharing with you, and the first thing that you must let go of in order to raise your vibration has to do with letting go of grudges and letting go of victimization. Now, what I'm going to do right now is show you this chart right here, and this chart comes from a book that is called Power versus Force. Now, this is a book by Dr. David Hawkins. It was a book that's all about understanding consciousness in a certain level type format. Now, the idea behind this scale that you see right here is that in the lower emotions, you'll see emotions such as shame, such as guilt, such as anger. What happens is as you move up this vibrational scale, you will feel better, your emotions will raise, and at the same time you will be raising your vibration. Now, you'll see that at a certain point, you'll see the emotions of neutrality, of willingness, then you'll eventually move up to acceptance, then eventually to love, and then joy, peace, and enlightenment, which is at like the very top. Now, the idea behind this is that in order to move up the scale the quickest, one of the things that is so powerful is learning forgiveness. Now, the idea behind this is that when you forgive, what you do is you let go of all these lower emotions. You let go of shame, of guilt. You let go of really any victimization of thinking that things happen to you. Now, this is why forgiveness is such a powerful practice. But the main idea behind this, and the easiest technique that I have ever found for forgiveness, is understanding this simple idea that everybody will always make decisions based upon their own level of rationalization. Now, what this means is that from a certain perspective, if somebody did something to you, they did something to you from their own thought process, which means that we may not understand it from our perspective, but they had to rationalize it at a certain point of view. Now, let's take an example for this. Say somebody stole from you. They tried lying about it, but they stole from you. Now, at a certain level, this person that stole from you had a perspective of limitation. They had some type of perspective that they had not enough and that they needed more. Now, out of their powerlessness, out of their lower emotional state of being of their perspective, they made the decision to steal from you. Now, from one perspective, you can look at it and you can see that that person did something to you. You can have the discernment, like maybe you won't trust them or maybe you won't be around them. But the idea behind this is not to be attached to the label of victimization, that they did that to you and that it is something that we need to hold on to. Now, understand that whatever emotions we are holding on to, we are feeling within ourselves, and we are creating patterns to where we will create it again. So the idea is that unless we actually forgive, we might create that same experience again with somebody else because we're holding on to that energy pattern. Now, this could get into what they call karma, but the idea behind it is that anything that we're feeling, we're going to attract more of it. So the idea behind clearing your karma and really just letting go of things that people do to you is forgiving by understanding that from their point of view, from their level of rationalization, that's why they made the decision. That's why they acted from that place. Now, this also comes from a common concept called seek first to understand rather than be understood. Try to understand where they're coming from. Doesn't mean you're going to agree with it, doesn't mean you're going to condone it, but what it does mean is you can accept that it happened. If you accept that it happened, if you just simply allow it to be what it is, and you reframe it, which is another part of it, you could reframe it and see it from a positive point of view. It's something maybe you learned, it's something maybe now that you know, you don't have to let it become something bigger that happens again. That is a powerful way to instantly raise your vibration and to allow yourself to really feel better. Now, the second thing that you must let go of to raise your vibration has to do with attention and attachment to thinking and labels. Now, many times we think that the thoughts that we're thinking are our own. And many times they're regurgitations, we are reiterating, we are thinking that everything that our ego thinks is us. Now, a very powerful shift happens when you become aware of what you're thinking. Now, this was the main trigger for me. I remember years ago when I started meditating, the first time I meditated or two, I didn't really feel much and I thought it was very annoying. It was very hard for me to just like try to control my mind. That was what I was focused on. But the major shift happened for me when I learned to observe my thoughts. What I did was, instead of trying to control my mind, I would think to myself, I'm just gonna observe what I think. So even if I thought to myself, I need to control my mind, or I need to not think these negative thoughts, which of course created more of them, I simply observed what I was thinking. In that observation mode, I got to this neutral standpoint. And in this neutral standpoint, it became very aware to me that there is a different level of consciousness within us. There is more space within us when we learn to observe our thoughts. Now, the best part about this is I became aware of all the labels that were holding me back. I became aware of the things that were holding me back as far as my thought processes, and I realized that I, at a certain level, had the ability to choose my own thoughts. Now, what this means is that instead of thinking that I am thinking these thoughts, I was able to observe them and decide, do I want this to be true for me? You know, at a certain point in my life, I had what is called ADHD. And from that, I learned how to observe my thoughts, and I learned to let that label go. And the moment that I let that label go and I realized I didn't have to keep perpetuating that effect, keep perpetuating that attachment, was the moment I stopped having it and needing it. Now, that was a huge game changer for me, and you can use this towards anything. If you think you're a shy person, if you think that you're a negative thinker, or that's just how you are, start to observe those thoughts and realize that you can choose that perspective, or you can choose another perspective. You can observe your thoughts, and when you do that, you neutralize negative emotion. You neutralize the attachment that you have to it, and that's a sure way that you're going to move up this vibrational scale. So, second thing you must let go of is attachment to negative thinking and learning to observe. When you learn to observe, I'll put up that scale again, you're right in the middle of willingness and acceptance. You're accepting what you're thinking. You're not holding on to the resistance of not wanting it to be there. Now, the third thing to let go of has to do with more of our body at an energetic level. Understand that whatever we put into our body literally becomes a part of us. If we are putting toxic foods into our body, and that simply means, doesn't mean we're putting poison into our body. At a certain level, maybe some of it is, but the idea is that when we put in food into our body that our body has to really try to break down, and we put more acidic foods into our body, that has an effect on how we feel. That brings our energy levels down because our body has to create that energy to digest the food. Now, the idea behind this is to let go of foods that don't serve you. You will become very aware of what foods don't serve you if you become more aware of your body, if you have more of what is called body consciousness. Now, what this means is that you can feel when you eat certain foods how that makes your body feel. After you eat a meal, you should feel very energized. You should feel like you have a ton of energy. And if you don't, then that means that the food might be holding you down. Now, for me, I found that eating plant-based foods or eating nutrient-rich foods is very powerful for increasing my energy. I'm somebody that likes to juice a lot. I don't do caffeine, not that there's anything wrong with it, but I personally just don't do caffeine. I don't do any like Red Bull. I don't do any type of energy drinks other than just simply juicing or understanding the power of breath. Now, this could technically be the 6 things to let go of, but understand that breathing is something very powerful for raising your vibration. Now, what happens is when you increase the oxygen level in your body and when you ultimately increase the alkalinity of your body, you're going to have more energy. You're going to feel more energized, and it's going to be something that then makes you you're going to want to do it more and more because of how it makes you feel. Now, at first, when you transition out of food that you normally find pleasure in, maybe food that stimulates you, maybe deep fried foods, or maybe eating certain type of like junk food, the idea is that at first it might kind of suck, but eventually you're going to feel the benefits on your own energy, and you're going to start to associate pleasure with it, and those will naturally start to raise your vibration. So understand, the more that you're really able to let go of foods that don't serve you, the more you're going to be able to raise your vibration and feel better. Now, the fourth one is one that's hard for some people to swallow. It's a idea that some people can have pain around it, and for me, I did as well. It's letting go of people that are bringing you down. Now, they have the common saying that you are a product of the 5 people you're around the most. And at a certain level, think about it. The people that you are around the most, your thoughts, the neurosynaptic connections in your brain are firing in a certain way that when you're around certain people, you are in training with their thought processes. So make sure you choose your friend wisely. Make sure that if there's people that are constantly breaking you down, constantly making you focus on these lower emotions on the vibrational scale, making you focus on victimization, guilt, shame, making you feel like you can't go after your dreams, whatever it is, understand that the more they bring you down, the more that you are keeping yourself in those lower vibrational levels. Now, the idea behind this is if you become more discernment of who is around you, if you become more discernment of how you feel when you're around certain people, then what you end up doing is you end up taking your own power back, because what you decide is that your energy is more important than anybody else having the ability to bring you down, or even the little bit of pleasure that you might get from them. Now, this is one of the instant ways to start to raise your vibration, is to simply let go of being around people that bring you down. The moment you do it, the moment you start to really buy into yourself, and the moment you really will start to feel better. Now, the 5th thing to let go of to raise your vibration is something I've talked about before, but it is just so powerful because we're not really aware of how much power this has over us. Think of the power of television and music and how that influences the subconscious mind. Now, when you watch television, you are automatically pretty much going to be in what is called an alpha brainwave state. Now, in an alpha brainwave state, what happens is you're much more in a suggestible point of view. You're much more suggestible with the ideas, with the repetition that's coming in at you at different levels. And when you're focused on television shows that don't serve you, and I'm not saying, you know, don't stop watching Game of Thrones. I'm not telling you to not watch it ever, but what I'm saying is the average American watches like 4 or 5 hours of television a night, or just be aware of what you are consuming. If you are watching shows that trigger lower emotions, as I said this before, if you watch like the car repo shows of people getting triggered and reacted to, you know, them taking their car, what you're doing is you are entraining those thoughts. You are thinking that that is a normal state of being, that is a normal emotion. And the more that we think that that is normal, the more we resonate with it because of what we're focused on. The idea is to be aware of the music you're listening to. If you listen to music that has certain words in it that affect you in a certain way, that really kind of keep you in a lower feeling, then be aware of that. Once again, have that body consciousness. Understand how you feel when you listen to certain music. What kind of emotions is it eliciting from you? And as you start to become aware of this, you're going to start to take your power back. As you decide to only consume positive information, or to only consume information that really serves you, that's going to be taking your power back, and that's going to be raising your vibration. Now, I've applied all of these in my own life. It's something that, it's been something, some of it slower at first, but ultimately the more I let go of things that didn't serve me, the better I felt. And I'm not kidding you guys when I say that I feel good a majority of the time. Now, I still have pressure. I still have pressure to create a video a day for you guys. I still have pressure to, you know, do what I want to do to become successful. But the idea behind it is that it's at a much different space when there's not things holding me back. And the easiest way to become aware of that is to become aware of your thoughts, to understand that first off, to let go of those lower emotions, to decide that you can forgive yourself, that you can forgive other people. That automatically begins to raise you. From the second point, what you can do is you can start to let go of labels that don't serve you, become aware of what you're thinking, and then thirdly, decide to become more aware of the food that you're eating. Decide to eat nutrient-rich foods, to eat foods that are alive. And the more that you do that, the more alive you will feel. Fourthly, remember that all you have to do is really decide to let go of people that aren't serving you. You can do it from a point of compassion. You don't have to never see them, but just decide that you're going to start to have more time around people that bring you up. Become more aware of how you feel when you're around certain people. And then fifthly, simply decide that what you're going to do is you're going to not watch television as much. You're not going to watch television that triggers you in a certain way. You can still watch your Game of Thrones. You can still watch the things that really give you pleasure, but understand that you can limit it to not, instead of maybe 4 or 5 hours a day, maybe it's just like one show a day, or you use that show as a reward for something that you have accomplished that day or something that you got done. So with that being said, I'm here in Sedona, Arizona. I'm going to go to like the Red Rocks. I've already shown you.